So without taking much more time from the Las Vegas team, I will ask them, Las Vegas, you are welcome on board. We have Jonathan Parra here joining.
Hey, how's it going?
I don't know. Hey, Jonathan, I'm great. How are you doing?
Good.
So we have Enoch Madrid. I'm adding him as well. I don't know if, how many people are you from your team?
There's 5 of us total. We got Enoch, we got Brady. How's it going, Enoch?
How's it going, Jonathan? How's it going, Peter?
I'm adding Brady, Enoch, I'm adding Sam. And if there are 5 of you, then at one point I will need to jump off, which I will do in a minute. And actually, so there is a limit of 5 people on the stage, meaning that if anyone wants to share their screen, one of you will have to leave. They should now be able to go back directly because I've let you in now already. And I'm just wondering that when I leave, will I be able to let in the 5th person? But let's hope I will be able to do that.
I hope so. If not, I can jump off as well.
And then you'll need to join at the same time. But let's try that. I think it should work. And so, Las Vegas is one of the teams who are, representing the US. Thank you very much. And what I really like about your talk, what we try to sort of do here is ideally every local group should bring something that has a local flavor. And New Zealand has been able to do that. Malaysia has been able to do that. And you are bringing customer experience and hospitality as a topic, if I understand correctly. So I'm really looking forward to this one. It's very Las Vegas-y. And I am signing off now, and I'll be here in the chat. So if there's any questions, let me know. And if you need to come back, I'll just kick someone off and take their place. And hopefully I'll be able to let the 5th person in. So over to you guys.
Awesome. Thanks. Thanks everyone for tuning into the Las Vegas session. If this is the first talk you've joined, welcome. I believe we have 2 more sessions after ours before the event wraps up. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Peter. If you've been online for a while, thanks for sticking around. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Jesse, for kicking off the efforts to bring local UX to a global audience. You guys have done an incredible job just administrating and making sure everything's running smoothly. As Peter said, after we wrap this session up, you can continue the conversation with us as well on the Las Vegas breakout session, which you'll find on the left of your screen above the appropriately labeled sessions link. Just a quick introduction. My name is Jonathan Parra. I'm one of the co-organizers of Las Vegas UX UI meetup. We're the largest design meetup in town, and we're super excited to represent our city tonight or today, depending on where you guys are tuning in from. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Brady Bolliard. He'll be co-moderating this event. Brady is a UX designer with 13 years of experience at a few Fortune 500 companies, the most recent of which being IBM. He's also a co-organizer of our meetup, and I couldn't think of anyone better to be the MC for tonight. I'll be paying attention to chat to capture audience questions as they come in, so please don't be shy. Ask away. We'll cover Q&A at the end, but if we run out of time, we'll continue in the Las Vegas breakout session. So with that, over to you, Brady.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. So hello, everyone. Welcome to our session coming live from beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. Just want to basically echo all of the thank yous that Jonathan mentioned, for this awesome opportunity. And also want to thank Jonathan for connecting the dots and establishing our place as one of the participating cities in this wonderful event, 24 Hours of UX. So I'm pleased to introduce two of our good friends from the Las Vegas UX UI. We might have a third joining a little late. But we've got 2 heavy hitters here from our town, and we're very pleased to have them. So Sam Hubbell and Enoch Madrid. And what I wanted to do first was get the session started by giving our listeners and viewers an opportunity to get to know you 2 a little bit better. So if you guys, we'll go ahead and go with Enoch. If you could give, a very short minute or 2 to introduce yourself here, that'd be great.
Okay, so my name's Enoch Madrid. I'm the UX designer at Caesars Entertainment. That means that I help with designing and all the user experience throughout like more than 40 property websites, casinos, and hotels, not just in Las Vegas, but also around the world. There's a lot of properties that Caesars owns, and before I did some UX, I was also the front end developer for Caesars. So I have about 3 years with the company. So yeah, basically brief introduction.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Thank you very much for that. So Sam, if you could go next, please.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having us. And it's so neat to see everybody. I've been watching in and out throughout the day, and it's so wonderful to see, like, even though it's UX and this is a discipline we practice, how consistent things are, not just in our hometown, but everywhere else. And so that's always really reassuring and neat to be influenced by everybody else we've seen. I'm Sam Hubbell. I currently work as a senior digital designer over at NS8. I've been in the industry for over 20 years now. And been doing things from agency work to contract work to UX to CX, kind of across the board in a whole wide range of things. I've done a lot of work here in town. I feel like I'm kind of more on the ground with a lot of local businesses here in the area, working from small to medium size, which is kind of my jam and kind of the things I like to touch and be a part of. So at the end of the day, I'm a creative, I'm a designer, and I look to encompass the breadth of the entire user experience from end to end is really the interests that I have.
Great. All right, thank you very much, both of you, for the intros. So as far as providing a little bit of expectation setting for viewers and listeners, so for the next 30 minutes or so, which it's probably even going to be a little bit longer than that because we're moving quite quick here. So for the duration of this portion of our session, format basically is going to be a fireside chat. So it's going to be an open conversation. We're going to be focusing on all things related to customer experience in the hospitality industry. As the discussion progresses, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put those in the chat to the right. My main man Jonathan's keeping an eye on that kind of stuff, and he might even bless us with his presence here as we start to get deep in these conversations. So if you have any questions, comments, please go ahead and put those in on the right. So one of the next thing I basically want to do here is kind of frame our conversation with a short description of customer experience. I'm pretty sure everybody has an idea of what that is, but just as far as everybody getting on the same page and coming from the same direction, I thought I'd provide just a very short description of that. So basically, it's the interaction between an organization and a customer over the duration of their relationship. The relationship could be, extremely short, say a few minutes, could be a day for certain products. It could be over almost your entire lifetime. I can think of a couple different products that I've been a big fan of since I was a child. So, the customer experience time, it can extend for an awful long time or be very short. So it can also involve multiple levels of interaction. So some examples of those are rational, emotional, sensorial, physical, and spiritual. And these interactions can be indirect or direct. Basically, the customer experience encompasses every aspect of a company's offering. So it's a big, what I'm trying to communicate here is it's a quite a beast as far as I think what we all do for a living here in UX and design. So one of the neat things about our panelists here is Enoch has quite the experience as far as Caesars goes in creating the design pattern for that company. So what I'd like to do, and as we've stated too, he's for Caesars, which is you might have heard of that organization. I don't know. It's kind of big, but it's just on the strip. So
yeah, I'm gonna share some websites there on Caesars and all the websites. It's massive. Hey,
Right,
Jonathan.
right. So what I'd like to do, and real quick before I pass it over to Enoch, I'd like to, why don't we back up a step? Jonathan joined our group, and so he's another one of our really good friends with the Las Vegas UX UI meetup. So Jonathan, if you could, we've already gone around the horn, but if you could give our listeners, our viewers, a little spiel about yourself, just a couple minutes would be great.
Couple of minutes. All right. We'll try our best. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Hey, it's awesome to be here with all of you guys. Phenomenal experience. Thanks, Brady and Jonathan, for setting this up. Yeah, so a little bit about me. Sorry about being late. I actually had technical difficulties, but we finally made it. So we're here.
No worries.
A little bit about me. I'm currently the lead UX designer for the Wynn Resorts here in Las Vegas. I've been here for about a year. I was a former UX director at Credit One Bank, which is one of the fastest credit card companies here in the United States. And then prior to that, I was part of different agencies and startups and whatnot, and that's been an incredible experience. I've been in the design field for about 10 years, give it a take. Although I did grow up with a dad who was a graphic designer, so in my homeland of Argentina. So I could say, you know, I've been around design my whole life. So it's been incredible. And yeah, so what does it mean to be a lead UX for the Wynn? I mean, there's a couple of different things, a couple of different products that we have. And you know, these products go anywhere from, you know, website to apps to Alexa to kiosk service design to a whole range of different things. I mean, we even have iPad experiences that go into a given room. So every little touch point, it's part of the user experience, right? So anybody that walks into the door and they navigate through all of our digital touch points that we have within our sort of facility or property, by the time they leave, they're always interacting with something, whatever that something is, right? Even at the comfort of their home as they're trying to book, you know, the next day here at the Wynn. And I think Enoch will be able to kind of associate with that as well, being, you know, working for a hotel. And it's just an incredible experience to be able to be part of that token that makes them make a hopefully that delightful experience as they're trying to book a room, or maybe as they're staying in one of the rooms, maybe they're asking Alexa to make a reservation for one of the restaurants that we have in property and so on. But anyway, so I know that's a long intro, but
Quite all right.
yeah.
But I'm sure we're going to touch on some of those points going forward, so you'll probably be able to have an opportunity to expand on a lot of that. Okay, great. Well, thank you, both, all three of you, for you know, being our chosen speakers for today. And what I'd like to do then is go ahead and I'd like to pass the mic basically to Enoch and let him explain and give us a little background on his design system and that kind of stuff. And then we'll really start to dig into the variety of questions that I have, and I think some of the other folks on the line have, and just kind of open it up. So go ahead, Enoch.
Sure.
It's all you, bud.
Okay. So first thing I want to, it was interesting how Jonathan said that, you know, like every person that walks in the door of any of the hotels, anywhere on the properties. Can you guys hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So like, you know, there's so many different touch points that go through the entire customer experience. My area, I want to show you guys what I have to basically work on, what it looks like in my area with the digital products. I would like to share with you so we can have some context of the amount of websites that the customers will have to touch on throughout their customer experience, from, you know, entering into a hotel, becoming a member, a loyalty program member. We call it the Caesars Rewards, to navigating through the website, booking a room, and then eventually, you know, the whole marketing with the emails and all the campaigns, in order to keep the customer engaged. So let's see if I can share my screen. I don't know if I can. Can we have 5 people? Let's see.
Jonathan says yes.
Yes. Okay. So yeah. Application window. Perfect.
There you go.
All right. So this is, so before you know, like let's think about, you know, somebody that wants to come to Las Vegas, they want a vacation. The first thing they do is they plan out their trip. So either go on a website, they go to Caesars.com or either a search engine, and they land on this page. So this is their Caesars.com page. This is the entry point to the entire empire. We have like, I don't know, like over 40 properties, not just in Las Vegas, but all over the world. Some in Atlantic City. There's a lot there. There's others in Europe and Dubai. So they'll eventually go through, you know, the Caesars.com. They'll want to find their destination to see what locations, where do they want to go. Once they choose that location, let's say Caesar's Palace, they'll look through, you know, the Caesar's Palace website, and then go through, let's see, okay, so I go through like the booking a room. This is the booking engine. This is where they select their room, and just to show you the amount of different and websites and experiences that they will have to go through, and how much they change throughout the experience, booking a room, and then eventually becoming a member. This is the dashboard, what you're looking at. This is when somebody signed up and became a rewards member. So there's a lot going on for the user, and my job is to like try to make this experience seamless and try to connect that I guess the brand, make it seem like it's a one experience throughout, and there's a lot of disconnect. So my solution to that was definitely like, we have so many different UI, so many different, you know, apps involved, different systems. So if we had a design system, you know, to bring all that together, to then, you know, leverage the language that, you know, the UI provides, that was my solution that I brought to the table. And the first thing that glues together all these different systems is the navigation system. So I went ahead, and this is taking me like 2 years to work on this entire design system. So I have here everything from typography, all the colors, spacing, card designs, shadows, motion design.
And this, Enoch, this wasn't set up prior. Then I'm taking. I understand.
No, none of this. Wow. This is all like building something, you know, from looking at the whole disconnect on the way that design, you know, like the user is going to go through all these websites and it's going to feel like, why am I going out of a different website and then go into another one? Why doesn't it feel the same?
Right.
You know, so my job as a UX designer, UI, basically a lot of this is in the UI, was to have that language, you know, make it more consistent throughout all the experiences.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, for example, like I remember taking inventory on buttons. We had like, I don't know, a good like 8-9 different types of buttons. I was like, let's just simplify that. This is one simple button that can be themed.
Right. Very cool.
You know, like all the different themes of colors, depending on which property you are in.
Right.
It'll change.
Okay.
But essentially the skeleton of the button it's always going to be the same.
Right. So if I could jump in here,
Yeah, sure.
As far as, you know, your creation goes, you know, how well was it received? And here's one thing that I neglected to mention at the beginning. All three of these guys are currently working, and there's there might be questions they have to plead the fifth just because of legal ramifications. So you three don't hesitate to just plead the fifth if necessary. But I want to get a feel real quick for how the challenge was in creating that, and then I'm going to jump to Sam and Jonathan and see if they have any experiences that are similar or not.
Sure. Yeah, so I'll go really quick. So we're going through the same thing, right? We're going through the same experiences. I think design systems, when you think about sort of the history of it and how we'll receive that it's perceived among different individuals within the organization, right? Some will challenge that, right? Like, what do we even need a design systems in the first place? And then others will say, well, no, we definitely need one so that we can actually improve our service design or sort of the design, from start to finish. So I guess, obviously, I've had my experience. I'm sure Sam had his own experience. But what about you? Like, what triggered to come up with this in the first place? Is this new? Is this old? Why all of a sudden you need to do something like this? What happened that triggered for you to come up with the design systems?
Definitely, there's there's a lot of time and effort going into building these products, and then the developers would jump in from one project to another, and then it started from the developers. Like, hey, how come we're doing the same thing, but they're all so different? And then it started from the bottom up into, and letting our managers know. And the challenge definitely was, like how can we make it where it's well received by the company? Right. I mean, obviously, there's the way I pitched it was, hey, we're spending a lot of money, a lot of money on development time. There's a lot of time going into it. If we had a design system, we could cut cost for not just development, but also designers. How fast can we produce designs? Especially when we know we need to focus more on the solutions of the things that we need to put out, whether it's a new feature or something we shouldn't be spending too much time on. What font type? What color should this be? What's the look and feel? If we had a design system, that's when I sell the idea, I sell it with like, hey, we're gonna speed things up. So that was my leverage. That was
So what's amazing to me, Enoch, and the rest of you guys, is that you were able to basically, it sounds like, do this without a champion in the upper echelon of the the management, if you will, which in my mind is mind blowing. That's quite a feat. I've been in situations where it would have been nice to have a champion, and I've tried to kind of do what you do, and it's really difficult. So I think that's very impressive in how you did that. And I think we might go ahead and dive down this path a little bit farther. But I also want to pass this on to Sam.
Sure.
So Sam's had Sam's had a variety of different experiences across our fine city. He's worked for some of the bigger casinos, the Sahara, the Venetian Palazzo, the Imperial Palace, those types of things. He's also done some work with the Neon Museum. So Sam, as far as I guess the conversation at this point is establishing a design system within the CX. What I'd like to know from you, or if you want to go off on a tangent that's similar to this or parallel to this, in your experiences, were you typically doing a lot of what Enoch was doing, where you were basically creating that from the ground up, or a lot of times were you basically fitting within something that was already predetermined and established?
Yeah, design systems encompass, as you alluded to, like the whole customer experience in a lot of ways, which includes sales, people at the front desk, other sort of marketing initiatives, not only just the product. So I found that design systems, having them in place, are beneficial all around, because you want to begin to create these design pieces or tokens, if you will, for other things. Say I want to do a marketing campaign, or I want to do some landing pages, or I have something else going on. The idea is that they all sort of stay within this consistency of the brand, and they all sort of speak the same language. It can get so disjointed, and as you probably heard the term spaghetti, the spaghetti code and spaghetti designs all over the place when you don't have that. A lot of times I find it depends on the size of company you're working for, say like a Caesars or something else. Like I'm sure it's a hard sell because there's a lack of understanding in a lot of ways, but at the same time, it's super important. Once it's implemented, it's highly valuable. Where I've seen where the confusion happens sometimes they're on smaller to medium-sized businesses. I think the moment you begin to do number 2 of anything, you begin to think of that design system, and big or small, but especially in these big name brands. One example is I worked on a project for the Neon Museum, which we did not only their marketing site, emails, landing pages, and then eventually a digital tour guide for them that was a progressive web app based. You find these sometimes when we weren't establishing sort of a design system, whether it was just almost internally for the purposes of how we develop and design things on that level to stay consistent, you would find these inconsistencies, or somebody else would get their hands on something and use it incorrectly. So I'd be curious, back to like Enoch and Jonathan, like your experience with design systems, what platforms you use or even recommend on how you maintain, and what is your process for incorporating, say, maybe new elements into the design system, or even how you go through your process of approving, say, those new pieces. Because at some point you almost want to make it hard for somebody to make any changes. You kind of want the process in that manner, so that you don't have those inconsistencies. So I'd be curious what you guys have to say about that.
That's a good point, Sam.
Yeah, so when it comes down to the process, I mean, we started back to what Enoch was saying, is that you got to go back and sort of go back to the drawing board. What are we doing good? What are we not doing good? And at the end of the day, it's about, consistencies and efficiencies. And you do not want to recreate the wheel over and over again. And I see a couple different comments on here in the comments where, you might be able to move a little bit faster on some of the other industries, but resorts, for one, they're very regulated, and it makes it quite difficult to move a little bit faster than other industries. And it's the fact that Vegas is a completely different beast, right? So it's not like you're working for a tech company in the Bay Area, and then all of a sudden you can just adapt to sort of the new functionalities, or maybe the new components that you can improve the UI and so on. But here it's more of a, you have to have a very tight group of designers and developers, and I'm one to work very closely with developers, and you want to have them on your good side anyways, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that do half the work. I mean, you're defining the experience and you're defining the UI. At the end of the day, they're the ones doing the hard, the work in the background, right? So, but it's not about creating beautiful UI and beautiful components, but rather, what does that mean for the developers? Are we making it easier for them? Are we sort of improving that process for them, right? So it's a tight community, and it's one that you have to build that relationship with them on an ongoing basis. For us, at the very least, at the Win, it's an ongoing process. I mean, we've been working on design systems for the last 12 months. We're not even close to be done. And even if we were done, it's an ongoing process. So you can have a fully designed, design systems, but at the end of the day, components, elements, and experiences continue to evolve. And it's not just one design system, right, with one team, with one set of developers, but it's also, as you have different products, right, whether it be the app or whether it be the website or whether it be the Alexa or whether it be other things, you have to have all those element, components, experiences defined as well. So it's an exhausting but very rewarding process.
How do you, quickly, Jonathan, just curious, so we're talking design systems, but how do you take, based on all the properties that are around the world, how does that translate into, say, different languages and countries and whatnot in order to communicate to that end user and to service them on that point? Is there anything you can speak to on that level?
I mean, to an extent, right? So we have different properties. Our team manages the Boston and Las Vegas property, right? So there's no international UI here that we need to discuss. That's definitely a different team somewhere else, and that's
or Enoch. I think I would be on Enoch side.
Yeah, so that'll be probably more on Enoch side.
I can show you guys, maybe not at an international level. I haven't got that far, but let's say it's just here in the United States. You have different states. There's different laws within the states as far as gaming and casino goes. So right. I want to show you guys something. Here's a registration form. The user will have to fill out for becoming a loyalty member. So here we have a message for Missouri residents. Okay, this was a special case scenario, right? Where in Missouri, there's a certain area code that technically they cannot do gaming. They cannot. We don't call it gaming. But if in other words, gambling and anything casino related, we'll call it gaming. So like, there are things that there's depending on which location that you sign up. I'm sure there's other ones. I think there's another one in Canada where they cannot become a member for XYZ reason because of the law. So we did some research to see, okay, what percentage of users are within that state, and then if it's less than like 2% of all our users, how can we show them that message, but only to those users, not the rest of the, like, why would we show this message to 100% of our users where it's only effective and it applies to only like 1% of our audience? So we'll simplify that. What we try to do is like take those scenarios and eliminate them, eliminate all these messaging, all these extra stuff for those that it's not relevant for the amount of people that we have to serve our websites to. So
it makes sense, and I've personally run into those situations as well with some of the previous employers that I've had, where it applies to certain users, applies to a certain persona, but it doesn't apply to others, and it can get kind of sticky.
Yeah. And then also, like, not everybody is going into a website, to register to have an account. Maybe they're already registered in a kiosk or inside one of the booths inside a casino. So like, we simplified this entire form just by having a screen as simple as this one. Do you have a Caesar's account, like a rewards card already? If not, create a new account. Then we'll simplify this. So depending if they enter that specific postal code, then they'll get that error message. And so what we try to do, our solution is like, how can we ask ourselves, how can we make the system smart enough to do the detection, so it can be smart enough to change the UI as the user is filling it out, or can it progressively change? And that's how we solve a lot of this stuff. A lot of these international I can't say that word.
International.
Yeah, international experiences. Yeah. So that's what we try to do. We try to think about, okay, can the system do a lot of this stuff automatically based on the information that the user is inputting? So, that's where there's so many different scenarios, but we try to do it that way.
It's a great approach. Again, something I'm quite familiar with, especially being in the insurance industry. What I'd like to do, I've got some other questions. We got some really good questions from the folks out viewing and listening in on the call. What I'd like to do is to switch topics to research, which is a very fun topic that drives a lot of UX. So I'll let you guys figure out or duke it out who wants to answer this first. But what I would like to know, and what I believe, I'm hoping the audience would like to know is, what kind of research practices, at what points do you guys do research, the validation of hypotheses and such? Do you guys do usability testing? Do you do surveys? How much, that kind of stuff? And again, I understand that you can only say so much due to your employment or your employer and whatnot, but who would like to jump on this first?
I can start on this. So
okay,
in Caesars, it was a little difficult for me to, convey the importance on research and having some kind of data to back up, any design decisions. So we do have a department that does research, surveys, and there is a lady that does we did a workshop. We actually took I think, I don't know, like 20 different users from the properties, and then went through, like the whole experience on booking a room, did they like it? And they recorded the whole session. So that was very valuable. But we only did that once for 3 days. And that's been my experience throughout like all 3 years at Caesars. Unfortunately, it's not very research heavy.
Okay.
But when when the opportunity, presents itself, I jump on it, and I try to find as much valuable information in order to back up my designs.
Smart man. Jonathan, I understand you're currently employed and there's some boundaries there, but can you give us any information on, the kind of testing and research that you guys do at all?
Yeah, no, we take a lot of pride on our research, and anything that we do, whether it be small or big, we always go back to looking at the data. So we have, and the data is interesting from a property standpoint, and I'm sure many other industries, because we have a property in Boston, we have a property in Las Vegas, and they're both completely different demographics. As in like literally completely different demographic. And so anything that we do, we have to be mindful of our consumer sentiments, right? So, and their behavior, and what do they do, what do they not do. And so we have a business intelligence team, and they pretty much have all the data that we ever need. And with them, again, working very closely with your developers, you want to work very closely with your BI team, because at the end of the day, you're going to need a lot of that data to help you, drive a lot of the designs, right? So data drives design. I think that data gives you a pretty good head start as to what it is that you need to do in order to solve for that, right? But that's a small part of the decision making when you're designing something. So, and the data could be anything. I mean, one of the things that we're looking into right now is we're working into one of the projects, which is a membership, right? And the membership in Boston is completely different than Vegas. So as we look at the data, we get a pretty good understanding as to how to move forward. Now, once we have that set, we then, start ideating with the team, and this includes a lot of the stakeholders. And then as part of the ideation, we come up with some low fidelity prototyping and to high fidelity prototyping, and then we test it along the way. We try to stick to early validation and feedback as we're doing the user testing, just because it's easier to iterate and evolve in the design. So we use a number of different usability tools. And then again, I mean, as part of the usability tools, I'm not preaching the choir here, and I don't want to do that, but that gives you a really good understanding of the user sentiment as you're trying to validate that behavior, right? I mean, today I'm working on a project which, to believe, it's a mid-sized project, but it's very impactful, and we believe that what we're doing is we're absolutely completely wrong. The users are telling us the complete opposite, and so you have to go back and consider to iterate, and that's the beauty of early iteration and early design revisions. And then also, as part of the stakeholders and the C-level suite, is that they love that. They love to be part of design sort of methodologies, right? The design process, and they love to be, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing because they're not telling you, it's not waterfall. It's like, you got to do this, you execute, and that's the end of the road. They believe in the design system approach, and they're very, very engaged, which is a good thing. But they love the process. So as long as we continue to work with BI team, gather the data, as long as we continue to do our design revisions through usability testing, I think you're going to be heading the right direction.
Right, and that sounds quite solid to me, in my experience. Let me toss this to Sam. So Sam, what experiences have you had with any type of research? Did you guys? Because I know you've had, again, a very wide variety of experiences from a design, working for a design suite, and then also working with some of the bigger casinos. Can you give us a little bit of lowdown on your background as far as research goes, what you did, if you did any?
I mean, research is that sort of early on was this love-hate relationship. I mean, you knew it was important, but you, as a designer and a creative, you wanted to make this amazing looking thing, and you just wanted it to be amazing, and that was it. And that's just kind of like a younger game, I guess, early on, and you get burned one too many times that direction. So you begin to really listen, and I think iteration is the big thing. A good example is like the Neon Museum tour guide, a progressive web app that we created. There was a lot of things. We did as much research as we could. We created a bunch of personas. We had a lot of people on board that were researched to help and benefited us at that level. But it wasn't perfect. And it even came down to an instance where when we began to do field testing on it, that we identified that, oh, well, you're on your devices, you're outside, it's brighter. The contrast of the design and interface was going to have a different experience during the day than at night. So we were lucky enough to test that early on and catch that before we released it. And we're able to sort of correct that and swap out different style sheets and stuff depending on the time of day. But even then, we put it out. We ended up identifying various things from there, and through constant iteration, it was we were able to sort of fine tune it. But the more we did that, the more things came up, and a lot of times it was just out of even excitement or maybe other opportunities that weren't even acknowledged. So, for instance, educational institutions wanting to use this as sort of a historical reference of Las Vegas were the signs of Las Vegas, and so that created sort of a new opportunity to share and explore for even just nonprofits and educational institutions around town. So, like, sometimes you can research as best as you want, but sometimes you'll have those, I feel like, the opportunities that come up even from either a good product or a bad product, that can then pose new sort of iterations or new versions of it. So that was kind of a little experience with that, but research is just couldn't get enough of it, and it's just so important, and it's always the go-to, whether it be quantitative or qualitative, sort of information and data that we have from it.
Great. Okay, cool. Thank you for that information that you just provided us, because that's really interesting how you guys basically did some learning on the fly, if you will, right? And then it spawned interesting.
Yeah, it's not pretty all the time either. Sometimes
What's
it's
that?
not
I'm
pretty
sorry?
all the time either. Sometimes you get scrappy.
Researches can get nasty, man. You gotta, I can tell you all kinds of horror stories. All right, let's. We don't have a huge amount of time left, but we did have a really good question. I believe it was from Crystal, one of our Las Vegas UX UI meetup friends and members. She was wanting to know a little bit about how you guys handle the accessibility. Enoch, I'm gonna throw it to you, and then we'll just kind of go around the horn if necessary. But the accessibility is obviously a very important topic and a facet of UX. So how do you guys handle accessibility?
Well, there's a lot of tools that from the design phase, that I would certain checkers on either a button or color, colorblind, and run through those tests. We do have a designer. She's more of a graphic designer, UX graphic designer, but I wish she was in our team, doing more UI UX. And she was more like the one that did most of the accessibility, testing.
Okay. So she's the one that is basically the lead on that. Does she basically do the testing and whatnot and do the research and then communicate that to the developers, or do the developers take the lead?
Yeah, either I would get the information or directly to the developers, but I was like the bridge. I was the bridge to the developers. So then also from the development side, I know that from working on the booking engine, there was a React plugin in order to make sure that the forms and other things are put into place as far as the development goes. Yeah, so I mean it is something that very important for us, but I don't really oversee so much on the accessibility. I try to do as much as I can when designing. Yeah.
Sure. You try to think about it while you're putting your designs together. Right? Yep. Very good. Jonathan, what's your take on the accessibilities?
Well, let's go back to when we started doing the designs. There's nifty little things that there's the plugins that allow you to check for contrast. There are things that they're very there's a couple different principles you want to follow, different standards you want to follow. You probably want to have that in your bag of tools. But for us, the first thing we do is utilize a couple different plugins that we have to keep up to standards and making sure that we're doing the right thing as we're doing that. And then we go ahead and test it. And then once we test it, you have different abilities to be able to check for accessibility and so on.
Right.
But I think accessibility beyond design, it's also important, right? So if somebody walks into, for us, now we're talking about hospitality and so on. There are different things that we try to consider for different types of individuals that may have some kind of disability, and we also try to consider them as part of the entire experience. So you never want to be able to neglect anybody, but it's a great question, and it's one that you probably want to invest a lot of time in sort of discussing the different things that we're all doing. I mean, you got to be mindful of lawsuits, right? So Win takes that very seriously, and so we are doing a couple different things that allow you to stay compliant at all times, and that is part of not just the property in itself, but then also that translates to also in the design for our website and the app and some of the other ones.
Yeah, no, that all that makes sense. I mean, everything you guys have said so far has made sense. Sam, would you like to chime in on your end as far as the disabilities and your previous experience?
Yeah, I mean, just to follow suit, I totally agree, and it's definitely something that needs to be top of mind and in front of the design in a lot of ways. So utilize the tools you can. You cover every aspect you can in that experience, and you get as many eyes on it as possible. Right. So it's definitely from a designer end, it's important, but we're always, I second guess myself as best I can on those areas to rely on sort of the rest of the team to sort of support in that area.
Sure. Yeah. I think as designers, all of us on here, no one intentionally designs anything to be unusable for any person for any reason. Right. So I know we're all responsible designers, responsible UXers, if you will. So Jonathan, I don't know if you want to start to come into the conversation here. I know we're talking about going to the sessions, doing some external sessions, correct?
Yeah, I just want to make a quick point. I want to make room for the next session. So we're just going to start wrapping up. If you guys still want to join the conversation, I've made a list. I've been watching chat, and I have a few questions from the audience that we'll ask you guys to elaborate on. We'll try to keep them more generally focused on the overall customer experience in the resorts. There are some questions on tooling and stuff like that, but I think we'll stick to the main topic of the overall CX to stay on brand with what we're trying to accomplish. So yeah, Peter, if you're in the back end, you can start the transition, guys. Thank you all for joining. We'll see you guys in the breakout session. Yeah, thank you. Thanks to the panel. Yeah, thank you for the panel for giving us your time. We look forward to seeing everyone else in the Las Vegas session and the breakouts on the left.
All right.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.